in your normal day-to-day dealings with clients, how do you broach the subject of someone leaving a legacy and their
Well,
go to charity? How do you deal with
the
that?
first thing to say is that if someone did now come to me and say, I want to leave a lasting legacy to local charities, I know exactly where to go to. So this experience and your involvement is really, really helpful. But in the day to day, as you say, Albert is a bit of a rarity. We were, in some respects, lucky, and the charities, I guess, are lucky that he was in the position he was in. Now, I know, take myself back, so I've been doing this for 20 odd years. And I think when I started, there was a campaign to raise charitable legacies with clients when taking their will instructions. And off the back of that, I now make sure, as part of our will instruction set, that that question is raised. So the first thing is, it is a standard question. I think everyone in the firm, when taking will instructions, will say, okay, what executors do you want to appoint? Do you need to appoint guardians? What do you want to do with any specific personal items? Are there any financial legacies you want to leave? Have you thought about leaving anything to charity? And that then opens the door. Now, with a lot of clients, the answer is no, because I want to benefit my immediate family. Family comes first, then charity. Sometimes it was interesting listening to you earlier about the lifetime giving versus the warm heart versus the cold heart. I'm going to remember that. Because I do sometimes get, oh, well, I've left a lot of money to charity in my life. I've been doing regular donations to, one of the big charities, so I don't feel that I need to in the will. And then occasionally you will get the client raising it. And so I've got a couple of cases on at the moment where people have said, I want to do something different. I don't just want to leave a sum of money to a big name charity. I want to set up a scholarship fund. I want to set up an art studio that will help, provide a space for budding artists. There was another one that was similar sort of theme, but with music, and you sort of go, okay, well, this is now left field. Do you then start looking for specific name charities, because they might not have something specific in mind, but it then opens, the conversation sort of flows from there, and then it's all about awareness and where to direct them and where to point them.
And I think,
So
yeah, and I think
yeah.
that's right, Simon, because what tends to happen, I think, because sometimes people will have an idea of what they want to do,
Mm.
but actually not sure how to execute it in that sense. And obviously, as a solicitor, it's that's not your expertise. You're not necessarily going to know how you make that. How do you turn that conversation into, yeah, we know someone you could donate to who would help set up that art studio, or who would be able to
Yeah,
administer that
I
that
think
that
the thing
that you would
is,
know that.
my role, our role as professional advisors, solicitors, what have you, is to provide advice so people can make informed decisions. And when you look at taking will instructions, you don't just say, right, what do you want to do? Bish bash bosh, and there's the will. That's not the service that we provide. You look at all the surrounding circumstances, and I find that, I'm not necessarily giving direct advice, but I'm flagging up issues that clients should be looking into. So, for example, if they've got their own limited company, I'm saying, well, have you got a shareholders agreement? Have you got a co-director? What would happen if you lost capacity? So you're looking around the edges, and then you find that you do a lot of signposting. So it's no different. So the charitable thing, if you've got someone in front who doesn't know necessarily what they want to do, the conversation will go along a path of, okay, well, would you like to have you thought about leaving a charitable legacy? Yes, but I'm not sure. Okay, well, would you be thinking of, a large national charity or a more local charity? What are your thoughts on that? And then, depending upon the responses you get, that's how the conversation flows. But with the cases I've got, the three that I've mentioned there, I mean, they are quite left field. That's not normal. But when they do come in, you then say, right, okay, who's the best people to speak to about funding these sorts of projects? And so through the Albert Burns legacy, clearly I would direct them to you guys and say, well, look, I don't know this. You might be able to help. And I know that if you can't help, that you'd be able to direct them to someone that could. So it's a process.
Yeah,
No one has all
exactly.
the answers.
No, exactly. And I think that's right. I think one of the things that we always want to stress is that, all of the other advice that you give as professional advisors is not our expertise. Where our expertise is in that local philanthropy and those local charities. And even if someone has an idea of what they'd like to do, so let's just take the art studio idea as an example. So someone wants to do that. And it might be that in their lifetime, they discover that art studio, they find it. They find what, they find that thing that they were hoping they could leave money to in their will. And that's lovely and that's great. The likely scenario is that won't happen because they'll end up having lots of questions about how do I know they'll use the money the way that I expect them to? How do I know they're legitimate? I don't know these people. All that sort of thing will come, will be questions they will ask themselves before they make that kind of significant donation. If, for example, they decided that an art studio in a particular geography in Kent, let's say it was Thanet, let's just say that's where they wanted it to go, but they hadn't found that art studio themselves, by instructing us through their letter of wishes, then they could quite clearly state that that's where the money would like to go, and then it would be our job to ensure that happens. So it would be our job to find whoever that was, whatever that charity was, whatever that social enterprise was, or social business who was running a project that was helping people through art, whether it was therapy, whatever that looked like. And it would be our job to do that and make sure that money went to where it needed to go. And by doing the letter of wishes element, which I think Sophie and Amy were talking about before. So, for example, in the will, if they decided after having a conversation with us that, yes, they would quite like to leave the money to Kent Community Foundation, for example, then that's all they would need to do with you. When the letter of wishes that we get, they could change at any time without it being a legal process to say, so even if an art studio was what they thought about 10 years ago, it might be that now something's happened in their family that means that they have their interest has changed, or there's something personal happened that makes them think, actually, I'd quite like to give it to something else. Then at any time, they can contact us and change that letter of wishes and change where they want that money to go, because they're giving it through us rather than direct to the charity. Does that make sense?
I think that's a really useful option. And I think that is what this is all about. Is when I talk about saying, right, giving advice so people can make informed decisions, it is about, right, what are the options? So that particular case, one of the options they have is setting up their own charity now, and then leaving funds to that through their will. But you've got to weigh up the pros and cons of it. It might not be practical to do it. As you say, they might not find a suitable location for it. They might not get around to actually setting it up, because we all have good intentions. Until they've set it up, the will can't direct the funds to it necessarily. So having the option of leaving it to you with that letter of wishes is really, is a really good thing. The other options they've got is trying to find a charity themselves that already does what they're trying to achieve. And then again, you've got that mix between, okay, is it going to be a local charity? Does it have to be based in this area, or will a similar charity in a different area, will that, cut the mustard? And that's got to be down to them. But it's the array of options, and then getting them to explore that, because obviously we can't do that for them. And it's not our role to tell them what to do. It's just saying, okay, so taking that into account, these are the immediate options that come up. And yes, you can explore setting up the charity, but there's going to be pros and cons with that. And you need to speak to someone that can advise you, properly on that. Similarly, if you're looking at, leaving it to an existing charity, then again, your details immediately come to mind.
And the professional advisors toolkit that we've created, Simon, in that it actually gives you a breakdown of what it means to set up your own trust and foundation. So, and the difference between either sort of giving through us, setting up your own trust and foundation, or giving the money to Charities Aid Foundation, which is the kind of the three main areas that routes you're likely to go down, or obviously give the money direct to if you know the charity yourself. I think the key thing and where professional advisors can play a significant role for the voluntary sector is about having the confidence to start that conversation about leaving money in your will to charity, and even more so the local element of it, because across Kent and Medway, especially if your clients are Kent and Medway based, across the sector, more than 95% of charities are small grassroots organisations that you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't know the name of, and who are doing a fantastic job locally, and it might be the ideal thing that your client might like to give money to, but people don't know what they don't know. So often I think when someone is having a discussion about leaving a gift in their will to charity, they will think about the organisations that are front of mind. They will think about the ones that are on TV because they see them all the time. So they will think about Cancer Research UK, which is a wonderful organisation, and there's nothing wrong with giving to Cancer Research UK at all. But in order to help balance out some of where that legacy money goes and make sure it kind of stays local, which I think lots of people, especially through COVID times, especially now, more people are wanting the money to stay local, and I think that's where you can play a part in that.
I think that is the tricky part, he says. So I think you've got the first hurdle is to start the discussion, but as I say, or as you say, if you ask someone if you want to leave, do you want to leave a charitable legacy? The answer is yes, and then inevitably it's going to be a large charity that will come to mind because they are front and center. So you will sometimes have clients that say yes, but I'm not sure what I want to do, and then that opens the door to providing more information. There is an argument that you need to provide the only way you're going to have a sensible discussion. So you're not presented with a client that has already made up their mind to leave money to a large charity purely because they're front and center, is to put the information in before you start discussing the will in detail. So it's about the information that you provide when you agree the appointment for the client to come in. So perhaps that would be a better way of dealing with it, because sure, you're going to get clients that, right, a loved one has been cared for by Macmillan nurses, so of course they're going to want to leave a legacy to them, and it's certainly not for me to say that they shouldn't, or that they should consider something else, but it is for those clients where there isn't an immediate obvious connection to a charity. It's exploring other options and again raising awareness. I mean, we do, as part of will instructions, we don't just accept the instructions at face value. We're supposed to ask questions. So we have license, and I often joke with clients, I've got license to ask all sorts of questions, because the more I know about you, the more I can, the better the advice is. So if you're leaving a legacy to someone, I want to know why. And say, and that's no different when it comes to charity. But I do think you're right that if they do think about charitable legacies, they will think of the larger charities first. So perhaps, having the toolkit, as you've mentioned, the will brochure that I have looked at, providing that sort of information as part of the opening pack that we provide to clients, perhaps that would be a way of a better way of handling it.
Yeah, possibly, Simon. I think everyone, like you say, everyone will have their way of working, and the culture of their firm will determine how they start those conversations and what materials they might provide to clients beforehand.